The National News Desk, locally covered, nationally connected.
A multi-billion-dollar funding clawback bill passes the Senate for the first time in over 3 decades. Why this type of spending cut could get more common and why critics are concerned. Then, a tourist attraction is reopening as a federal prison. The American citizens, the White House says, could be held in Alcatraz. And a new report on Iran's nuclear sites, how many of them were actually destroyed in the U.S. strikes last month, and what it means for the country's nuclear ambitions. This is the National News Desk, America's News. Now, we are glad you're here with us. I'm Dee Dee Gatton, and we begin tonight with a move that has most Republicans celebrating and Democrats saying that this will be dangerous for the country and the world. Billions of dollars of federal funding that had previously been approved by Congress is now set to be slashed. Let's get right to the National News Desk. Christine Frizzell for a breakdown of what's in the bill.
At the heart of the rescissions package, $9 billion in spending cuts.
It's a small but important step toward fiscal sanity that we all should be able to agree is long overdue.
Republicans celebrating the clawing back of those funds, including about $8 billion in foreign aid they say was wasteful.
$2.2 million to reduce xenophobia towards Venezuelan migrants. $3 million for Iraqi Sesame Street.
Democrats, meanwhile, sounding alarm bells about Sesame Street in the United States and other educational programming for kids, as the bill also cuts more than $1 billion from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, which funds PBS and NPR, which supporters say are relied upon for information in emergencies.
In many remote areas, or in states like Florida with hurricane season upon us, they rely on a series of public broadcasting to get alerts out.
I am not sure how NPR helps the public safety of our country, but I do know that NPR, unfortunately, has become really just a propaganda voice for the left.
Senator Lisa Murkowski, one of the 2 Republicans who voted no, also raised concerns that just like the big beautiful bill, this legislation was more a wish from the White House than a creation by Congress.
What we're getting now is a direction from the White House and being told, this is the priority. We want you to execute on it. We'll be back with you with another round.
She and others also raising concerns about the lack of specifics about exactly what will be cut.
Americans will be talking about these cuts at their diners, at the grocery store, at dinner, at the park, because the cuts will be felt everywhere.
And this is the first rescissions package that passed the Senate in more than 30 years. But some are warning this could become far more common. And one Democratic senator said the same method will be used when his party is back in charge. Dee Dee?
Christine, what are you learning about possible next steps here?
Yeah, so there's already some new reporting out that the White House budget chief, with the blessing of the White House, could send another rescissions package to Congress. That means another vote on clawing back even more funding that had already been approved. Dee Dee?
We'll see how far this goes. Live from Washington, D.C., Christine Frizzell, thank you. The White House says President Trump has been diagnosed with chronic venous insufficiency after noting mild swelling in his lower legs. This occurs when veins in the legs struggle to allow blood to flow back up to the heart. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt described CVI as benign and common, particularly in those over 70. Deep vein thrombosis, blood clots are the most common cause, but the White House says Trump does not have that or any arterial disease. Leavitt also says minor bruising on the back of President Trump's hand shown in recent photos is consistent with irritation from frequent handshaking and the use of aspirin. More fallout from the Jeffrey Epstein controversy. House Speaker Mike Johnson is considering supporting a measure aimed at releasing more information related to the case, according to The Hill. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt addressed that topic today.
The Democrats had control of this building, the White House, for 4 years, and they didn't do a dang thing when it came to transparency in regards to Jeffrey Epstein and his heinous crimes. It was this president who directed the Department of Justice and the Attorney General to do an exhaustive review of all files related to Jeffrey Epstein, which they did.
She said President Trump does not plan to appoint a special counsel. Both Republicans and Democrats have expressed outrage at the Justice Department's handling of the case. The Trump administration is planning to reopen Alcatraz, the former federal prison in San Francisco that's now a national park. Today, Attorney General Pam Bondi and Interior Secretary Doug Burgum toured Alcatraz Island. Burgum said on X they were starting to work to renovate and reopen the site. The White House says it wouldn't just be for non-citizens.
Who the president wants to see housed in Alcatraz, the worst of the worst criminals in this country, both American criminals who convict heinous crimes, but also illegal alien criminals before deportation as well.
Immigration officials will be granted access to the personal information of Medicaid recipients, according to the Associated Press. A new agreement between DHS and CMS says it will allow ICE officials to find illegal aliens. The data includes names, addresses, birth dates, ethnicities, and social security numbers. They'll have access from 9 to 5 on weekdays until early September. The sweeping gag order on the University of Idaho murder case is now lifted. News organizations asked the judge to lift it since Brian Kohberger pleaded guilty to fatally stabbing 4 students in 2022. He avoided a potential death sentence in the plea deal. The judge says since there won't be a trial, the public has the right to know the facts available about the case. The captain of the Air India flight in the deadly plane crash last month may have switched off the fuel for the engines right after takeoff. That's according to a new Wall Street Journal report. A black box recording of a conversation between the two pilots suggests the captain was the one who turned off the fuel switches. Indian officials stress that it's too soon to reach any conclusions. Only one of the 3 Iranian nuclear enrichment sites hit by the U.S. last month was destroyed. That's according to NBC News, citing a U.S. assessment of the destruction. Work was set back substantially at the one that was destroyed. Work could resume at the other 2 over the next few months. The report also says President Trump rejected a battle plan that would have lasted several weeks rather than a day over concerns of getting bogged down in another war. The U.S. and Ukraine could be on the verge of an arms deal. The National News Desk, Kelly Gaskins, joins us from Washington with more on what Ukraine has that the U.S. needs as part of the negotiation.
The United States has long been viewed as the world's leader in military technology, pulling off impressive feats like the bombing of Iran's nuclear facilities last month. But some experts warn the U.S. lags behind in the less sophisticated but still devastating sphere of small, cheap attack drones, like the ones Ukraine used to take out a string of valuable Russian bomber planes deep behind enemy lines.
Domestically here in the homeland, America is pretty vulnerable against unmanned threats, drone threats, other threats from the air.
The White House and DOD taking steps to address this gap in defense vulnerability.
The challenge up till now has been that the United States military leadership and Washington policy politicians have thought that we wouldn't ever get into a World War I style artillery war.
The New York Post reporting a mega deal is in the works between President Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky for the United States to buy Ukrainian military drones. In exchange, Ukraine will buy an array of U.S. weapons. Zelensky also telling the Post his country is offering to share what they've learned about modern warfare through real-world application during the ongoing war with Russia.
There is no doubt the United States has a lot to learn from one of the world's most battle-tested militaries on the front lines, grinding day in, day out, which is Ukraine.
America's weakness when it comes to cheap drone technology was highlighted during a 4-day testing project in Alaska by the Defense Department with private drone manufacturers. Many of the demonstrations ended with drones crashing into targets or completely missing them. Experts point out the U.S. lags behind China and even Russia when it comes to this type of drone technology and its application for defense.
President Donald Trump signed executive orders meant to address America's drone deficiency back in June, and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth sent out a memo as well, assuring they're focused on ensuring the military's capabilities match modern threats. In Washington, I'm Kayla Gaskins.
Transgender surgeries and hormone treatments are now banned for people under 21 in Puerto Rico. The governor just signed a bill into law that calls for 15 years in prison for physicians who break it, along with a $50,000 fine and revocation of a license. The Puerto Rico LGBTQ Plus Federation says they will challenge the law, calling it inhumane. The vaping brand Juul can continue selling e-cigarettes despite being blamed for the teen vaping trend. Today, the FDA said Juul's research shows its products are less harmful for adults and can help smokers. The decision applies to tobacco and menthol-flavored vapes. The FDA has only approved a few e-cigarettes while rejecting over 1 million others. Coming up, the areas most at risk for dangerous flooding tonight and the wildfires that are threatening critical infrastructure. Plus, Americans spending more despite a recent rise in inflation. We'll look at what's driving it. Then the challenges patrol agents are facing at the northern border and the resources they say they need. We'll be right back. Right now, around 20 million people are under flood alerts, and nearly 80 million people are at risk for severe weather. Much of the east and parts of the central and western U.S. are at risk, especially northern New England, where some scattered, damaging winds and a tornado are all possible. Large hail and severe wind is also possible in Montana and North Dakota. Now, along the Gulf Coast, millions are bracing for heavy rain and severe flooding from a potential tropical system, though the National Hurricane Center says it's running out of time to fully develop. Still, parts of Louisiana could get nearly a foot of rain with 2 to 3 inches per hour. Heavy rain could also spell trouble for other areas along the Gulf from Florida to Texas. Firefighters in Utah are now getting federal funds from FEMA as they find a wildfire in Monroe. The nearly 9,000-acre uncontained fire threatens critical infrastructure. Officials are searching for the driver of a utility terrain vehicle who they believe may be linked to the start of this fire. Anyone with information should call Forest Service law enforcement. A fire in Oregon is growing fast as hot and windy weather remains in the forecast. Officials say the Cram Fire has burned over 77,000 acres since starting just a few days ago. It is still uncontained. Level 1, 2, and 3 evacuation orders are in place for multiple counties.
It's very dynamic, right? The fire, and it's changing, I wouldn't say all the time, but pretty rapidly, and at a moment's notice, a level 1 could go up to level 2 or level 3.
Officials say over 1,000 buildings are now threatened, but none have been lost. Retail sales rebounded in June, even as inflation started to rise from the effects of President Trump's tariffs. The National News Desk, Audra El-Nashar, takes a look at what's behind the boost in spending and how Americans are paying for it.
As prices on store shelves start to tick back up, Americans keep spending. After May's sharp drop in retail sales, spending bounced back in June, rising 0.6% from last month.
It's so interesting how the mood is depressed, and yet the actual spending data continues to come in strongly.
Wage growth has outpaced inflation for more than 2.5 years. The highest of President Trump's tariffs, forecasted to push up inflation, have been temporarily paused, and the stock market keeps breaking records.
There is data that shows that people spend more when markets are up. A lot of the tariff impacts so far have been delayed, but not necessarily avoided forever. There's still a feeling that maybe come August or September, these prices could be higher.
Going into back-to-school shopping season, 52% of parents say they're anxious about the potential for higher prices, according to a new survey by Deloitte. In order to keep spending, many rely on credit cards. New bank rate data finds about a quarter of credit card holders don't think they'll ever be able to pay theirs off.
Credit card interest rates are near an all-time high. Here in Washington, interest rates are also a thorn in the side of President Trump. Now, the chair of the Federal Reserve cannot unilaterally cut rates, but that hasn't stopped the president from going after Jerome Powell every day this week.
He's always been too late, hence his nickname, Too Late. He should have cut interest rates a long time ago.
Jerome Powell has done a terrible job, and frankly, I don't think he could do a worse job.
Oh, he's a knucklehead. A stupid guy. Congratulations.
Trump was the first to nominate Powell to the job in 2017. Powell's term ends next May, and the president has already started the search for his successor. Thursday's strong retail sales data likely gives the Fed more reason to hold off on cutting interest rates while they wait for the effects of the president's tariffs, some as high as 50%, to set in. In Washington, I'm Atrel Nashar reporting.
Uber is expanding its robo-taxi profile. The company plans to buy at least 20,000 electric vehicles from Lucid that have self-driving technology from Nuro. Uber is purchasing a stake in both companies. The robo-taxis will be available in a major urban area next year. Uber says this is part of its plans for an electric, shared, and autonomous future. Indiana Fever star Caitlin Clark pulls out of All-Star Weekend due to an injury. The guard injured her right groin Tuesday during a game against the Connecticut Sun. Clark was named captain for one of the All-Star teams and was also set to participate in a three-point contest. She said she's incredibly sad and disappointed, but her body needs rest and she still looks forward to being at the arena. We have reporters all across the country in your neighborhoods covering issues that matter to you. We are taking the pulse of America, and we start in Washington, where a small coffee business is trying to fend off a food industry titan.
What started as an entrepreneurial dream for Evan Afline is now a slowly growing small business called Seattle Strong. But that name has drawn the ire of a corporate titan.
In my opinion, I think it's about the word Seattle.
Afline says he came up with the name Seattle Strong as a student at the University of Washington, then launched the cold brew coffee business and got the brand trademarked 2 years ago. The Nestle company, based in Switzerland, has been marketing a line of coffee products called Seattle's Best and asked the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office to revoke Afline's trademark.
I think it's pretty ludicrous. To say that getting that trademark means that no one else can use the word Seattle, I think is an exceptional stretch.
In court filings, Nestle claims the names are so similar that coffee buyers may confuse the two brands, which would dilute the distinctiveness of Nestle's Seattle's Best mark and damage the international corporation. His legal bills are already mounting, which is money he'd rather reinvest to grow a small local company. But he says the fight is worth it.
Detective Scott Hanley, a 23-year veteran of Boca Raton Police, had just dropped off his grandkids when a Cessna came falling from the sky, slamming into a tree in a Pembroke Pines neighborhood. Inside that plane, a family of four: pilot Carlos Balza Cardenas, his wife Fandy Moretz, and their two teenage daughters.
The first thing I saw was the gentleman that was in the plane. He was kind of standing in an upright position with his back kind of against the window, kind of hitting it and kind of screaming frantically to kind of like, get us out of here, get us out of here.
Neighbors grabbed whatever they could: a fire extinguisher, a garden hose, and one man handed Hanley an axe.
Oh my God, they're trying to get him out of the plane.
I just took it a few times, hit the window, window shatters on the top, and we were able to get the gentleman out.
Through chance, instinct, and something close to a miracle, all 4 survived.
In Seattle, crowds flocked to the Seattle Center Fountain and Green Lake, some of the city's go-to spots for cooling off.
I don't go anywhere anymore in summers because it's the best weather and the best place to be in summer, Northwest.
You got to make sure you got your sunscreen, you got to have plenty of water, and find the shade when you can in between games.
Puget Sound Energy is asking customers to conserve power during flex alerts. They recommend thermostats be set no lower than 72 degrees and large appliances be turned off when not in use. And it's not just people feeling the heat, bridges are also cooling off. Video from SDOT shows water trucks spraying down the Fremont Bridge to keep steel components from expanding in the heat and affecting its ability to open and close.
We're lucky actually in Seattle. There's other places like Arizona and Florida where the heat is more brutal, so I say it's a gorgeous day right now.
Coming up, the national security threats coming across the northern border 4 times as often as they are across the southern border. We'll be right back. Tonight, we are bringing you an on-the-ground look at the northern border. Because of its size and scope, those tasked with keeping the areas safe say they are under-resourced and overwhelmed. Spotlight on America's Christine Frizzell just returned from the region and brings us this report.
A walk along the northern border of the United States, and it becomes abundantly clear it bears almost no resemblance to its southern counterpart.
It's whack-a-mole, you know, like they're here for a couple months and then they move.
Those tasked with protecting the region study patterns of those who enter the country illegally.
This is a layup spot.
Since the border here is practically invisible, no wall or fence, or even a clear demarcation, other than these mini monuments, which stand guard amid lush summer foliage. All challenges that make up a typical day for Chief Patrol Agent in Charge, Raymond Bresnahan.
It's basically all woodland and swamps. And then that changes during the winter. Now we've got snow. If you've got your ride waiting and everything's planned out, you can be from Canada here in 20 minutes.
And they can just jump on the highway.
Right.
The border with Canada, more than 5,500 miles, more than twice as long as our border with Mexico.
We have significantly less resources than the southern border has to patrol 2,000 miles of border between the United States and Mexico.
Robert Garcia is chief of the Swanton sector, the busiest sector in the north. While they rely heavily on technology, his agents lack even basic roads to drive cars on to patrol.
This is the busiest location on the northern border for flow of illicit goods and contraband.
Are we talking about drugs and guns and?
Yes, drugs, guns, people, any commodity that the criminal organizations can make a profit.
The northern border, also the site of an alarming trend. More than 1,200 people on the terror watch list encountered at ports of entry in the north during the past 4 years, compared to just over 300 at the southern ports.
What does this tell us that all these terror suspects are coming through in the north?
It's the easiest entry. The most dangerous people in the world are finding the easiest way to get to America. And they're saying, I'm not going to get down and wade through a river, or I'm not going to have to cut through barbed wire. I'm going to fly to Canada and walk across.
Congressman Mike Kelly helped start the Northern Border Security Caucus on Capitol Hill. Its 24 members say the Biden administration wouldn't hear their concerns about security. Earlier this year, they asked Border Czar Tom Homan for help. He says more resources are coming with the passing of the so-called Big Beautiful Bill.
We got to put more boots on the ground. We need more technology in areas that just can't be patrolled.
And with cooperation from our neighbors to the north.
That's why we're working very closely with the Canadian Border Forces, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, and their federal government.
Resources welcomed by those on the front lines.
This was getting hit hard for a while, but then we deployed our technology and now we moved somewhere else.
For Spotlight on America, I'm Christine Frizzau.
Coming up, how much the world's largest meteorite just sold for at auction? We'll have that answer right after this. Remember that rock from Mars we told you about yesterday? Let's jog your memory. Here's the image right here. It just sold for a little over $5 million. Sotheby's auction house announced the final bid for the world's largest meteorite. It was $4.3 million after fees and other costs. It was around $5.3 million. The rock was found in the Sahara Desert by a meteorite hunter in 2023. I just can't believe that amount. That is going to do it for us for this edition of the National News Desk. We invite you to join us again starting at 10 tonight for America's top stories, including what Hunter Biden just said is the real reason his dad didn't get the presidency. I'm Dee Gatton here in Washington. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again tonight.